Hi everyone, I'm Tami. I'm the creator of the blog and this YouTube channel called Nutmeg Notebook. So really happy to have you joining us today. At the end of last week's video, someone put in a question, and I didn't get their name before we started today, but they asked why an SOS-free lifestyle. And I thought, hey, that's a great subject that we can deal with next week. So whoever wrote that question, I hope you're here today because I'm going to answer that for you. So my husband Tom is behind the camera and he will be moderating, and I believe we have some moderators here with us helping today. So here's Tom.
Hello everybody, my name's Tom. I'll be joining Tami after her presentation so we can work through your live stream questions. Our moderators, Randy and Jesse, are here today, so they'll be helping me moderate the live stream.
And Tiffany's not here today.
Tiffany's out today, but her flowers are here.
But I have flowers, Tiffany, when you watch the replay.
So,
I've got flowers.
Anyway, so Tami's got a well-prepared presentation here, so I'm going to step off camera for a little bit. And
you want to tell them what to do about questions?
Yeah, if you do have a question, well, two things. If you can hold them till after the presentation and then put 4 question marks before and 4 question marks after, that will help us spot those questions and deal with them on the live feed. If you have a question now that you want to go ahead and place, our moderators can answer. Other members on the chat feed, please go ahead and answer. So yeah, keep the chat feed busy and talk amongst yourselves. That's great. We love that.
But listen to what I have to say as well.
Yes. Well, sometimes they talk about what you're saying, so that's perfectly fine.
That's good too.
And then if I catch something, we can scroll back up and check. But anyway.
Yeah, and if you want to share this video on Facebook, you can share it right now, real time, and that would just help us reach more people. And for those of you who don't know, I transitioned to a whole food plant-based diet in 2013, and then in 2015, I met Chef AJ virtually and joined her online group, and that's when things really changed for me. I went completely SOS-free and ended nearly 4 decades of yo-yo dieting.
And you're going to explain what SOS-free
means. And I'm going to explain all about SOS-free, what it stands for, and what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and Tom transitioned around 2015 or so is when you were
gradually over about 18 months.
Yeah, it took him a little bit longer to transition to a plant-based diet than I did, but he's fully in with me now, and it's great to have a partner to do this with. Okay. So I'm going to get started.
Okay.
So here's what, and
I'm going to roll around.
You're going to roll around.
Yep.
Okay. He doesn't want to be on camera if he's not talking. So I totally get it. So an SOS-free diet simply means that we are not adding any salt, oil, or sugar when we are cooking the food or afterwards. So I'm going to be perfectly honest with you that I am not completely salt-free. We do eat in restaurants where we do get salt in our food, and also I occasionally use some condiments that have salt in them. I might buy some salsa or use some hot sauce, and I kind of like the statement that the poison is in the dosage. And so, I'm not going to eat a whole cup of salsa. I'm going to use, a tablespoon or 2. And so sometimes I use some condiments that have salt, and I don't worry about it. In fact, I talked about that this morning. On Sunday mornings, Tom and I go for our morning walks. We do that every day. But on Sunday mornings, we do a Facebook Live from our Nutmeg Notebook page. And this morning I was talking about negotiables. And so, that's one of my little things that I allow myself to have. So anyway, so here is why an SOS-free, which stands for salt, oil, and sugar, why it is desirable to either eliminate or at least reduce your consumption of salt, oil, and sugar. So one of the most compelling reasons is that SOS, salt, oil, and sugar, in our diet usually leads to excess. It usually stimulates our appetite. It tastes good and causes us to overeat. And if we overeat, then we're probably going to end up with extra pounds. And we know that obesity leads to a lot of health issues. So, everything from cardiovascular disease to cancer, autoimmune diseases. Too much salt is also linked to high blood pressure, stroke, osteoporosis, inflammation, stomach cancer, and heart disease. Too much sugar. So Americans are currently eating about 150 pounds of sugar a year, and that leads to obesity and the obesity-related diseases. And oil, all kinds of oil. And oil contributes to a lot of health risks for our cardiovascular system, as well as it tends to help us get obese. And I'm going to talk more about that later. So another reason to limit salt, oil, and sugar, those are kind of the little trio, is that they are very addictive, especially when they are combined. They become extremely addictive. It's very difficult. Remember that old Lay's commercial? If you're old enough, I'm 61, and I remember the Lay's potato chip commercial where they said, you can't eat just one. Well, they were so right, because you couldn't reach your hand in that bag, take one chip and not want more, because they were salty and oily and highly addictive. So, Dr. Doug Lisle calls those foods part of the pleasure trap, because they hijack the brain. They give us this extreme dopamine hit, which is a pleasure chemical in our brain, and make it extremely difficult to moderate certain foods. And certainly salt, oil, and sugar combined in lots of different ways is highly addictive, especially when you add flour into it. And flour is actually another thing that I avoid, but I'm not talking about the flour today. I don't want to scare you off too much. We're just really going to talk about the salt, oil, and sugar. So how much salt, oil, and sugar do we actually need for our nutrient needs? Well, from a pure nutritional standpoint, we don't need any salt, oil, or sugar added to our food, because we get all that we need of our fats and sodium from a whole food, plant-based diet. So we get everything in its purest form that's unprocessed simply by eating plants. And while we do need a lot of unrefined carbohydrates, and that should constitute about 70 to 80% of our daily calories, we can get those foods, we can get the carbohydrates from foods like starchy vegetables, green and yellow vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and fruit. So let's start with salt. So excessive sodium can contribute to hypertension, which is high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, an increase in mortality. Well, I, for one, want to live. Osteoporosis, inflammation, joint pain, and even stomach cancer. Salty, it seems like when we used to use a salt shaker at the table, I will tell you, can I share what you used to do when you ate meat, Tom? Can I share what you used to do when you ate meat?
Yeah.
We would have to put a salt shaker on the table next to Tom's placemat, and he would literally salt individually every bite of meat he took. And I think it seems like he built up a tolerance to it, and so he kept having to use more and more in order to get the flavor that he wanted. So, and we do that a lot with some of those foods like sugar and salt that we eat. It takes more and more as time goes on to satisfy us. So salt also leads to passive overeating, even on healthy foods like rice and potatoes, by about 8%. They've actually done laboratory studies with human beings and tested them. And you can do a test yourself. You can take some plain baked potatoes, you can eat some plain, you can salt some, and you will, when you salt them, you will definitely want to eat more of them. The same as when I make my air fried French fries. No oil on them, and I don't salt them. But if I salted those, I would eat so much more of them, because that salt just makes everything taste good. It increases the appetite. It just, we're going to overeat. So you can test that yourself. You can do it with rice or potatoes. So one of the toughest parts about eating an SOS-free diet is when you're eating out in restaurants. Now, I can avoid oil and I can avoid sugar, and we're fortunate that where we live, we have several local restaurants that are either all vegan or have vegan options, and the owners, because of such an increase in requests from their customers, have provided us with some oil-free vegan options. Now, they are not salt-free. They do still have oil. So, they do still have sodium in them, but they don't have oil. So we're very fortunate that way. But in most restaurants, unless you're ordering like a plain salad, it's going to be very difficult to order something that is salt, oil, and sugar free. Even if they say, well, we can make that without oil, the chefs just think that everything has to have oil and salt. And so it just makes it really difficult. Also, if you're buying any kind of pre-packaged processed foods, just know that it's going to be very difficult to get things without sodium unless it's labeled as being salt-free, which you can now find salt-free canned tomatoes in BPA-free cans. I found canned lentils recently that are salt-free. You can get no salt added beans. So there are some products, but you have to be a label reader if you're going to buy things that come from outside of the produce department. So our bodies need less than a 1/4 teaspoon of sodium a day. That's a very small amount, and that is easily obtainable through a whole food plant-based diet. There are foods that we eat that are just naturally higher in sodium. Celery, for one, is a little bit higher in sodium, and some of the dark leafy greens have more sodium. So if you're missing that salty flavor, then you can add those to your soups or stews or chilies or to your salads, and that will help give you a bit of a salty flavor. We also really like the Table Tasty salt substitute. It has the most salt-like flavor, and you can use lemon juice or lime juice because something acidic kind of helps fill in for the lack of sodium. And I think we even did a whole video on how to cook without salt. And so I can have Tom post that in the show more notes, the video that we did about how to cook without salt. Okay. Or salt substitutes, whatever we did. So one safe rule of thumb to make sure that your sodium content in milligrams is equal to or less is to make sure that when you're looking at the label that the sodium in milligrams is equal to or less than the total amount of calories per serving. So for example, pasta sauce. If it says that the calories for a serving, which is probably usually about a 1/2 cup, is 50 calories, then the sodium listed for it should not be more than 50 milligrams. So that's just kind of a good guideline to go by. So if you can find some pasta sauces that don't have any added sodium, but they're still going to show some sodium on the label because there's just naturally a little bit of sodium in the food. So the USDA dietary guidelines, I checked them today, they recommend an upper limit of no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day, but it says right there on their website that most Americans are consuming over 3,400 milligrams of sodium a day. Is it any wonder that so many people are on hypertension medications? They say that 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day is the maximum for people who have diabetes or hypertension, or if you're over the age of 50 or African American. And they say that 500 milligrams of sodium a day is the minimum. So yes, we do need sodium in our diet for proper functioning. And I was on the UC Davis Integrative Medicine website reading articles that Dr. Roseanne Oliveira wrote, and she is a plant-based doctor. And she said that we can reach our minimum that we need and reach all of our requirements if we're eating a wide variety of whole food plant foods. So we don't have to worry about, for most of us, getting a lack of sodium. Of course, this is something that you should discuss with your own physician, and I am not giving medical advice. I am just sharing with you what I have learned and what Tom and I do. And if you need to have more sodium in your diet, that is something that you and your doctor do need to talk about. I can run low in sodium in the summertime because my blood pressure will drop sometimes if I'm exercising a lot. And so if we're hiking or doing a lot of exercising where I'm going to be perspiring a lot, we're outside on the hot summer days, then I will eat things that are higher in sodium just to help me with that. So it takes about 30 days to neuroadapt when you stop using salt in your food. So for those first, couple of weeks, food might not taste as good to you because you're used to having that sensation of that salt and that stimulation that it gives you. And so and some of the foods that you eat and some of the recipes that you try making without salt initially may not taste good to you. But at the end of 30 days, if you went back and tried those foods again or tried those recipes again, you might have a totally different reaction to them. So neuroadaptation is a real thing, and you may have experienced that when you transitioned to a whole food plant-based diet. It can take some time to get used to the new flavors and the different tastes that food has when it's not been hijacked by salt, oil, and sugar. And so you just have to know that in advance and give yourself time and be patient, and you will see that eventually things will start tasting salty to you just naturally. You will just discover that, oh my gosh, like I had celery juice this morning after we had gone for our 4-mile walk. I came home, I had the celery juice, and oh my gosh, today it tasted so salty to me. Sometimes I'll buy, different types of greens and I'll cook them and they will taste really salty to me. So even sometimes something like a cucumber, it's just like the strangest things that I will taste salt in. So, but you become more sensitive to it when you cut it out of your diet. Now let's talk about oil. Oil is something that people really resist about giving up, and it may be one of the hardest things for some people to give up because we've been taught to cook with oil. And I love this quote from Dr. Esselstyn. And if you don't know Dr. Esselstyn, he is the author of How to Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And he has a video, lots of videos actually, because he's done a lot of speaking engagements and interviews. So if you Google Dr. Esselstyn, no oil. You will find lots of YouTube videos that you can watch. But here's what he says. No oil, not even olive oil, which goes against a lot of other advice out there about so-called good fats. Both the monounsaturated fat and saturated fats contained in oils are harmful to the endothelium, which is the innermost lining of the artery. And that injury is the gateway to vascular disease. It doesn't matter whether it's olive oil, corn oil, coconut oil, canola oil, or any other kind. Avoid all oil. From Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. So here's the deal. Oils are jam-packed with calories. They are a liquid fat. So even from just a standpoint of weight loss or maintaining weight, oil is no good for us. Even if it was healthy, it wouldn't be good for us, but it's not healthy. All of the calories are from fat. So pretty much it's just liquid fat. So I have a calorie density video that I did a month or so ago, and I show you all about the calorie density of all the foods, and I talk about how oil has 4,000 calories per pound, which makes it the most calorie dense food on the planet. And you know, you think about 1 little tablespoon of oil, any kind of oil, it takes up so little space in your stomach. It does not add to your satiety when you eat. They've done studies in laboratories where they have fed people pasta with a marinara sauce that had no oil in it, and then they added a lot of oil to the pasta sauce, had people try eating that one, and guess what? Even though it contained hundreds more calories, it did not prevent them from eating the whole thing, because our brain, our body doesn't pick up on the fact that it has more calories in it because of the oil. So very easy to overeat and increase the calorie density of our food. You take something delicious and healthy, like a pound of broccoli, and you add a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil to it to roast it, and you've just increased the calorie density of it immensely, but it's not going to be any more satisfying to you. You're still going to eat the same quantity of it. So, and it's void of all of its nutrients because it's been stripped of its fiber and the nutrients. The only thing that's left in oil once it's been processed is a small amount of vitamin E and a small amount of vitamin K. So here's what it does. It slows down your blood flow. It depresses the immune system. It stacks up inside your arteries. It damages your blood vessels, and it contributes to insulin resistance. It also contributes to impotence in men and back pain because it slows down the blood flow. All oils, every one of them, promote heart disease. So a study in JAMA, which is the Journal of American Medical Association, said that all oils, saturated, monosaturated, which is olive oil, and polyunsaturated, flax oil, were associated with an increase in the plaque buildup that clogs our arteries and leads to heart attacks. That alone, that's a good reason to not have oil. It also causes our red blood cells to clump up, which limits their ability to absorb and deliver oxygen to our cells, and that slows down the blood flow. Studies have shown that the blood flow mediated dilation decreases by over 30% for 4 hours after we eat a fatty meal. With such a decrease in flow mediated dilation, is it any wonder that so many people crash after they eat a meal? So think about like Thanksgiving, Christmas, after people eat a big meal that was just loaded with lots of fat. Everybody goes into the family room and crashes, right? A lot of people end up getting sick or they have a heart attack after eating a big meal like that. So it's very dangerous. We don't always associate how we feel with what we just ate, but it's there, it's real. Finally, according to the National Institute of Health, oil suppresses our immune system, which makes us vulnerable to infections, and it impairs our body's ability to stop the growth of cancer cells. So, Roto-Rooter is really busy during the holidays. And why is that? Because people are cooking with a lot of high-fat ingredients, and then they're pouring the liquids and the leftovers down their disposable or down their kitchen sink, and it clogs up the pipes. Well, our pipes, our arteries, our veins are no different than the water pipes in our household. And so if the juices and the leftovers from the food that you have prepared can clog your water pipes, that's the same thing they're doing to your body, to your arteries and your veins in your body, which when you think of that, I just think it's so disgusting that happens. So you want to remember that, that your blood vessels are delivering not only blood, but they are also delivering nutrients and oxygen through to your cells throughout your body. So if you want to live a whole food, plant-based, healthy lifestyle, you have to get rid of oil, even coconut oil, flaxseed oil, hemp seed oil, every kind of oil. In fact, the coconut oil is a saturated fat. So someone like myself who has a tendency to have high LDL cholesterol, I really avoid having that. So instead of having the oil, we want to go for the whole food. So instead of flaxseed oil, use the ground flax. Instead of hemp seed oil, eat the hemp. Instead of the olive oil, if you don't have a weight issue, eat the olives. So it can take between 90 and 120 days to neuroadapt when you eliminate the oil from your diet. So that's the longest stretch. And so if you're someone who is used to fried food or using a lot of olive oil or butter or whatever the fat is that you've been used to using, just know that it's going to take 90 to 120 days for you to neuroadapt and get used to it. No flax oil. If you need the omega-3s, then eat the ground flax. You only need about a tablespoon a day. So in terms of your diet, your body needs two types of polyunsaturated fatty acids, the omega-3s and the omega-6s. So omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids contribute to brain function. So the omega-3s are also thought to reduce inflammation and reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. We must get omega-3 and omega-6 from our diet because our cells, our body cells, are unable to manufacture them. But it needs to be emphasized that our need for these fatty acids is very, very small. And Dr. Roseanne Oliveira from UC Davis Integrative Medicine, and you can look up their website, UC Davis Integrative Medicine. She says at the end of the day, the truth is that essential fatty acid deficiency is essentially non-existent in the general population. And if you are eating a whole food, plant-based diet where you are eating from all of the healthy food groups, so you are eating the non-starchy vegetables, you are getting in the dark leafy greens, you are eating the cruciferous vegetables, you are eating the unrefined carbohydrates, you are eating beans and legumes, and you are eating fruit, you're eating whole grains, you will be able to get all of the essential omega-3 and omega-6s. You can make sure that you're getting some hemp seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, ground flax seeds, chia seeds, or walnuts. If you Google where good, healthy sources of omega-3s and omega-6 from plants, you will find a nice list. So just, you can Google that. And I know that when Chef AJ was doing her weight loss summit last year, she asked every doctor that she interviewed, have you ever had anyone of your patients be diagnosed with being deficient in essential fatty acids? And they all said no. So you can actually have a test for that when you go for your physical and see how you're doing. You know, when we go for our physicals, we tell our physicians that we eat a whole food plant-based diet, and we want certain things to be tested. And so you can be tested, because I don't believe in taking supplements unless I know that I have a need for them. And so you can get things tested. Okay, so now we're moving on to sugar. This is unbelievable, but Americans are eating over 150 pounds of sugar per person a year. So that means they're eating, you know, like half a pound of sugar per day. Isn't that just unreal? So I don't think that I have to convince you that sugar is not a health food, because I think that we all know that it's not a health food, that it leads to cavities, it leads to obesity and obesity related diseases. Sugar is 1,800 calories per pound on the calorie density chart, and it's been stripped of all of its nutrients. So if you take beets, for example, beets are a really healthy, delicious food, and they're under 200 calories per pound. But when you take and process them and turn them into beet sugar, now you have a substance that is 1,800 calories per pound, and it's been stripped of all of its fiber, all of its nutrients, and all you're left with is this white substance that is like a chemical, because sugar lights up the same parts of the brain that cocaine and heroin light up. So not in the same exact amount, but in the same place. So it causes a huge dopamine hit, which is the pleasure chemical in the brain, and that leads to cravings. And for some people, it leads to an uncontrollable desire to have more sugar. Now, I happen to be one of those people who's very susceptible to the effects of sugar, but sugar usually isn't consumed. You know, we're not sitting around eating a spoonful of sugar. It's usually combined with other high-fat ingredients like processed flour and some kind of fat to go with it, and then, you know, baked into something that is super scrumptious. And that puts us into what Dr. Doug Lisle calls the pleasure trap. And once we get acquainted with those flavors, then our brain just keeps asking for more, because it's been hardwired to seek out the highest calorie density food for the least amount of effort. And so, you know, it's going to crave the cookies or the brownies over an apple if, you know, if I have that. Plus, if I have the super sugary, high fat laden food, then my natural food is no longer going to taste good. So sugar also can be found hiding in a lot of places that you would never think of. And so the food industry is really tricky, and they have a lot of different names for sugar, so that when you're looking on the label, they can mask how much sugar is in there. So if you Google names of different types of sugar, you will get like a list that's huge, like a paragraph this big. You know, like a huge paragraph of different names that all describe different types of sugar. So on a processed food package label, it may have 4 or 5 different types of sugar that they're using in there on the ingredient list. But unless you know the names to look for, you would never know, because it doesn't say sugar. It'll say something else. So it's in a lot of condiments, it's in canned goods, it's in bread. And bread, by the way, is really, really high in sodium. Unless you buy a low sodium bread, bread is just really high in sodium. That's one of the reasons that we all love it so much, is because it's salty. And once they process the flour too, we get kind of the same hit, chemical hit in our brain with the dopamine from processed flours, just like we do the sugar. So we never lose our taste for sweet. That is a taste that we are born with, because mother's milk is sweet. So we're born with the desire to want that sweet mother's milk. So that is a survival mechanism. So even once you get rid of the refined sugar from your diet, you are never going to lose the desire and the taste for sweet, but you can tame it. And so, you know, we have memory, and so we want to eat the foods that we habitually eat. Those are the foods that we crave. And so if you're eating the SOS food, salt, oil, sugar, especially combined, which they're almost always combined. We're not eating just salt, we're not eating just oil, and we're not just eating sugar. They're always combined with other things that make them even more palatable. And so when we're eating a diet that's high in those ingredients, that is what we crave. Our brain just keeps saying, yes, give us more, because it's a survival technique. Those foods are very high calorie density. And so that's what our brain says, let's have more of that, because our ancestors needed that for survival. Unfortunately, we are not living in a world where there is scarcity of food. Food is available on nearly every corner in America. And so we don't need to have that constant desire to overeat on those things. Now, you will tame your sweet tooth, trust me, but it's going to take time, especially if you have a real sweet tooth. So initially, is watermelon and oranges and cherries going to taste fantastic to you and be a substitute for dessert? Probably not in the same manner. If you're used to eating cookies and brownies and ice cream, probably not. But here's the thing, the longer you eat healthier, the better the food starts to taste. And eventually then, natural, sweet fruit is going to taste amazing. Tom and I had organic cherries like last night after dinner that were to die for. I was like, this is like the best cherries I've ever had. And he said, I know. He said, do you think part of it is just because we have neuroadapted and so it tastes even better to us? And I said, that's probably part of it. And I love that. I love that we were so thrilled to eat a bowl of cherries and so happy because they were so sweet and so delightful. And so the same thing can happen for you. So you can still have sweet treats. I have recipes on my blog for cobblers and crisps and brownies, but they're made with using fruit. So super ripe bananas are really sugary sweet and are a great substitute when doing whole food plant-based baking. If I need it to be even sweeter than that, I will use dates. And yes, dates are sweet and they are more high calorie density than an apple. But here's the thing, they're full of nutrients. They have the fiber, they have the water, and they're packed with nutrients. And so they're very nutritious to eat. Oh dear. I forgot to shut my watch off. And so you can eventually be completely satisfied by having fruit for dessert and using fruit to help create wonderful desserts. And like our banana nice cream, which, you know, all the vegans and the plant-based people love to use frozen fruits to make what is like ice cream. And our grandchildren think that it's the greatest thing on earth because they've never had regular ice cream. They've never even had like the vegan ice creams from the store because those are full of sugar and chemicals and things that we don't want them to eat. And so they absolutely love the frozen fruit made into the ice creams. So that's my presentation. That is why we avoid SOS. And I will tell you, I've been SOS free now for 5 years, and it just gets easier. So we have mental, muscle memory, and so it just gets easier. It gets easier to say no. And for some of us, if you can moderate eating some of the higher calorie density foods, then more power to you. Then that's what you should do. If I could moderate those high calorie density foods, I would, because who doesn't love a cookie or a brownie or a donut occasionally. But unfortunately for me, that leads to a binge. Those things just hijack my brain. We are not all created equal. It's just like some people can drink moderately alcohol and other people cannot because their chemistry is different and it will turn them into an alcoholic. Well, the same is true for certain foods. For some of us, there are food addictions, and sugar is certainly one of those food addictions, and so is flour for some of us. Now, and there is a spectrum. So, some people are on the low end and some people are on the high end when it comes to food addiction. I'm somewhere in the middle. So I can tolerate like a little bit of oat flour or a little bit of spelt flour occasionally, and that does not turn to a binge for me. But I don't do sugar because sugar just hijacks my brain. And so, the more liberal, whole food, plant-based diet plans like the Engine 2, that is too liberal for me. I need to be more like Chef AJ's Ultimate Weight Loss Plan, where we avoid the SOFAs, the salt, oil, sugar, flour, and alcohol. And I never really cared too much for alcohol. Alcohol was never a problem for me, but I just don't need the extra calories because, the less I weigh, the less calories I need, and I'm certainly not going to waste my calories on, 100 or 200 calories of a beverage like alcohol. I would rather have real food that I can chew and I can eat. But that's for me. And so wherever you are, whatever your body chemistry is like, I always say that we're an experiment of one. And so you have to figure out what's right for you and do what's right for you. If you can tolerate some of these these not exactly healthy foods, but high calorie density foods in small amounts in moderation, then, go for it. Okay. So I'm ready for questions.
Okay, there was a question when you were talking about a couple of sweetener questions. What about using monk fruit as a sweetener?
Yeah, I have not used it and I have not researched it. Now, if it has been refined and turned into a powder, then that's where you have to use some judgment. Just like stevia in the plant form would probably be just fine, but when they take it and dry it and turn it into a white powder, or they turn it into a liquid with little drops, what happens is that it tricks the brain and makes the brain go crazy, because when the brain tastes sweet, then it says, oh my goodness, we're taking in some sugar. We need some insulin. So it pumps out some insulin, but then the insulin doesn't have the glucose to work on. And so then it doesn't know what to do because it tasted sweet. And so it can really mess with your, how your body functions. And so also, when they take something like stevia and turn it into a white powder, it's super concentrated and super sweet. And also, our brain doesn't know what to do with that. And what I encountered when I was using liquid stevia is I kept having to use more and more of it all the time in order to get the level of sweetness that I wanted. So I don't know about monk fruit because I haven't used it. I haven't.
You use date paste for that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I'm
so
going to scooch over just a little bit.
Okay, sure. Which way?
That away.
And so I will make date paste, and I have a video and a blog post on how to make date paste, and I will use date paste when I need something really sweet.
Those are really recent. The date paste video is fairly recent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just go to the channel page and search for date paste, it will come up. You know, comment here from Jessie, one of our moderators. She says, and now I have something recent from Tami to tell other people to check out if they ask, because it's not an uncommon question, what's SOS mean? So yeah, make this a reference video in discussing, you know, people that are curious about our whole food plant-based lifestyle and how we do it in a healthy way. So absolutely, our intention is that this can be a resource video for you to share with folks. That's absolutely great.
And eventually I'll do a blog post too, so that I can put in resources for you. But for now, you can look up Dr. Esselstyn. I also looked up Colin T. Campbell, or is it T. Colin Campbell, and read information that he offered about SOS-free.
Yeah, Tami's not a real doctor, but all of her information comes from real doctors.
And the UC Davis Integrative Medicine website also has a lot of information about it. So you can just Google why SOS-free diet as well. And hopefully after we get this video posted, we'll show up for that also.
Speaking of
sorry I don't know about monk fruit.
Okay, speaking of real doctors, Karen G had a question up further, quite a bit higher in the chat feed. She tested low on sodium, and her doctor informed her of that. And should she add sodium back into her diet? That is a doctor question.
Yep. So you really should have a conversation with your doctor about that. A few years back, I was having some dizzy spells in the summertime, and went to my doctor about that and found out that, you know, my blood pressure was running really low. I was doing a lot of outdoor exercise in the summer heat, and you know, he just figured that I was probably low on sodium and needed to add a little bit of sodium in my diet. You know, I have a plant-based friend who also runs really low on sodium, and so she does use some condiments that have sodium in them, and eats the celery and, you know, different dark leafy greens just to keep her sodium levels up. And so you know, that's a good conversation to have with your doctor, and to find out what is the right amount for you. And, you know, they can test you for the sodium levels.
Okay. I think it was pretty well addressed in the chat feed. Tiffany Cargile asked a question early on about, can lemon juice make things taste salty? We do absolutely use it for that. It was answered in the chat feed that the sour receptor is right next to the salty receptors on your tongue, and it does fool your taste buds into thinking that they're getting salt, and that's a real common use.
Yeah, and it works great. So if you take a little bit of fresh lemon and squeeze the lemon juice over your vegetables, it will make those taste salty. Over your potato, Benson's Table Tasty will also give you a bit of a salty taste. Anything acidic, so even like the California balsamic vinegars, or if you have like red wine vinegar or any of those, you know, that vinegar can also help with that.
And while we're on salt, Beverly DeBolt was asking, what about iodine? What about getting iodized salt? Don't we need iodized salt?
Well, you can get iodine from sea vegetables, and that's also a good question for you to address with your physician. And you can be tested and see if you are low in iodine, and then make some decisions based on that from there. But you can use dulse. You can get ground kelp. There's
Does
lots
the stuff
of different.
you put in the beans have some iodine?
Yes.
In it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that the dulse?
That's the
nori.
No, you can use nori sheets.
Yeah.
You know, and make wraps with those. So, and you can Google that, ways to get natural iodine. So it doesn't have to come from iodized salt. There are other ways to get it, and you can sprinkle vegetables with a little bit of the sea kelp, and it'll give it a salty flavor to it.
Okay.
And it has iodine.
I know you have some questions from last week we want to get to, but I'm almost caught up here.
Okay.
Sharon St. Bryce is asking, do you use oat flour? If you use a flour in cooking, it's usually oat flour that you make yourself.
I'll use just a little tiny bit, like a quarter of a cup or maybe half a cup in something occasionally. So, but I don't, I don't use it on any like regular basis. I make my quinoa banana oat muffins, and the only thing that is ground in them is I do take some quinoa, which is actually a seed, not a grain, and I will grind the quinoa, or I'll use quinoa flakes I'm trying to up the protein in them, because our granddaughter really liked those, and she is little, and so I was just trying to pack as much nutrition into those as I could, so that when she ate those and would fill up on them, we knew that she was getting a lot of nutrition. But otherwise, I don't do a lot of baking per se, just because those more refined foods and sweet are just really addictive, and I'll want to overeat on them.
Okay. Now we have some logistics questions that were emailed in to us. First one is from John Warren. And what is John asking, Tami?
Well, he wanted to know, when you only have one refrigerator and you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, how can you maximize the amount of space that you have? Because it just feels like their refrigerator is full and they don't know what to do.
You have to be strategic.
You do. And, I'm very fortunate that we have two refrigerators that are this size, one in here and then one in our garage. So one thing that we have discovered, just trying to fit everything into this refrigerator once we batch prep everything, is that using square or rectangular containers and containers that nest.
That can stack, yeah, the snap blocks we use.
Yes,
yeah.
Are very important to do. And, round containers have a lot of wasted space around them, because the walls of the refrigerator it's square in there. And so we have found that if we use rectangular or square containers in there, and ones that will stack, that we can fit a lot more food in the same amount of space. And then also, if you're buying things that are coming pre-packaged, if you take things out of the packages, they'll take less room. If you go ahead and trim and cut things up, and get rid of the roots of things and so forth, and then put them in containers that they fit nicely in, then it will also take up less room in the refrigerator. And of course, once you cook things, then they take up a lot less room, because everything shrinks. And so, like, I will take we'll buy the big bag of the Power Greens at Costco, and then the bag of squash. And if I cut up the squash and use the Power Greens and saute an onion and go ahead and cut up my mushrooms, then and cook those. So cook the onion and the mushrooms, and add a little bit of garlic, and then add those vegetables in there, then that giant bag of greens gets reduced, to a really small amount. And then I can take and put all of that in 2 containers, 1 container for, I'll usually do 4 or 5 containers, and then put that in the refrigerator. Well, I've just reduced the amount of space that the mushrooms, the zucchini, and that big bag of power greens took up. And I'll cook everything just till like al dente, so that when I reheat everything, it'll be just perfect and it won't be mush. And so that helps take up a lot less space. So hopefully that will help. And you may just have to shop more often when you eat this way. So because everything does take up a lot of refrigeration space, and so you might have to shop, for the perishables, you might have to shop more than once a week for those. Kind of like the Europeans do, they have really small refrigerators, and, so they go to the market daily or every other day. Then this is a question you can answer, Tom. So Sherry left us a question on YouTube and wanted to know if we still like our Breville Smart Oven Air, and does it make our countertop hot?
After 3 years, we love our Breville Smart Oven Air. It gets used multiple times daily. One of us is using it at lunchtime. Well, uses it sometimes in the morning as well, your early muffin baking. So yeah, we're very happy with it, and it does get hot on top. And we have, you can see over here to the left, we have the official Breville cutting board on there. We do take the tomatoes off when we're using it. You see over in, let's see, over there.
Yeah.
And so we have the regulation amount of space above it. We're fortunate that we have stone walls on the left side and on the back wall of that area. And so there's some heat on the sides. They recommend, I think, 4 inches or something on all sides. They're really concerned about it being close to flammable surfaces, of course, or varnished wood and whatnot. Fortunately, we're not dealing with that. So it does get hot, more so on top. The cutting board cuts down on that and allows us to set, racks and trays up there as we're cooking. So very happy with the Breville. It's one of our most consistent things that we actually sell on our Amazon page, that people have been getting it for some time. They do have a 2-year warranty, and Breville's really good about covering any warranty issues. We did have something come up a year and a half ago on our door, and they took care of it like that.
Oh, and what about, does it make the countertop hot?
Not really. It gets warm down there, but
But it does not get hot.
No, because heat rises, and I think if there's an air intake, it's probably coming in through the bottom. The heating elements are directing the heat up. There is a pan, a crumb pan underneath there, and below that is the bottom panel of the oven itself. So there's a couple layers of metal in between where there's heat and where your countertop is. So I wouldn't be concerned about putting it on like a laminate type counter. I don't believe that would be a problem. The end all to those questions is to contact customer support at Breville, but I'm sure some really smart scientists figured out the heat tolerances of Formica and that type of thing. For a lot of surfaces today are ceramic or stone. Of course, those wouldn't be a problem.
Right. And then someone left us a message. Where was this message about Japanese sweet potatoes? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Oh, I think it was on YouTube. Arana 42 said, do you have any YouTube videos about toppings for JSP? Well, actually, we have a video on how to air fry Japanese sweet potatoes. And in that video, I show you how to take one and put...
Orana's here.
Okay, great. That's you. Yay! Good. So you would Google how to air fry sweet potatoes. And I show you a couple different things in that to do. One is with sliced banana, sliced apple, and cinnamon.
Where is this at? Because I can't interrupt it.
On YouTube.
On YouTube, okay.
And then one is just diagonally scoring the top of it and using some cinnamon, air frying it, and then you can drizzle it with some of the sweeter balsamic vinegars, like from California Balsamic. So I love to take like a Japanese sweet potato or even a Hana yam or the garnet yams, the regular, orange sweet potatoes. I like the contrast of the sweet potato with something savory. So on the blog, there is a recipe for barbecue lentils, and think kind of like sloppy joes. And I love those over a sweet potato, any kind of sweet potato. Also, there's a curry chickpeas or chickpea curry, I think it's called, recipe on the blog. And I love to make that and put that over a sweet potato, or taco lentils over a sweet potato. And then some of our chipotle nacho cheese sauce. That makes it really delicious. Or chili, like Chef AJ's red lentil chili is delicious over a sweet potato. So that is how I do the contrast between something savory or spicy and sweet. And then if you want it to be more like for breakfast or dessert or a snack, if you take slices of banana. Of course, I always think that the sweet potatoes are much better once they've been baked, chilled, and then you air fry them, because that just brings the natural sugars out and caramelizes them and makes them even tastier. And then once it's warmed up and really sweet, then you can add fresh blueberries or frozen blueberries or slices of banana, and you can add cinnamon or nutmeg and or pineapple to them, or just whatever fruit you have. Like right now, peaches would be really good. Peaches warmed up in the Breville or the air fryer along with the potato would be great. And then take one of the fruity flavored
peaches
California.
And pitted cherries, and some of your
well,
muffin
we
mix
like
on
to
top.
we like to do figs too.
Yeah.
Figs in the Breville are delicious.
I saw some in the store the other day.
Did you?
See, at Sprouts had figs laying out.
They're so good. Cut in half and then just put them in the air
Air
fryer
fried.
for a few minutes until they start to caramelize, and they're amazing. And then do the sweet California balsamic vinegars, like the blueberry, or one of just the peach, or just pineapple, and drizzle just a little bit. It doesn't take a lot because the sweet potatoes are really sweet all on their own. So anyway, and then if anybody else has any ideas.
Okay,
So
there's a few questions here I want to catch. Ali Oakley, yes, there is shelf-stable tofu. You don't have to refrigerate it. We keep some around sometimes. Use it for cooking or something, don't you?
yeah, it's the shelf-stable tofu is more for like sauces and salad dressings and desserts, because it doesn't stay firm.
It's not real firm.
So it's more for using for cooking.
Yeah.
Now, if you need a substitute for olive oil, you can use water, or you can use vegetable stock. You can use
Oh, that's another question.
tomato
Okay.
juice, the juice from a can of no salt added tomatoes. You can use a little bit of vinegar, and if you have a really good nonstick pan, a lot of times you don't have to add anything, but water works just as good.
That was Peggy's
And-
question you were doing here?
Yeah, and then on the vegetable stock, you want to look for a very low sodium vegetable stock. The lowest sodium one that you'll find in most conventional stores is about 130 milligrams per cup, and the calories are only about 35 or 40. So you can see that it's way over what we talked about, that the calories should be equal to the milligrams of sodium. So you can make your own vegetable stock. Chef AJ has a recipe in her book, Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss. You can Google how to make your own vegetable stock. Local Spicery from localspicery.com. They have little packets already put together with all the seasonings to make, and you can just save up your scraps from when you're prepping your vegetables and freeze them. And when you have a whole gallon size freezer bag full, then you can make your own, and you don't even have to buy the seasonings. You can just throw in
Their link
basil,
is in the show notes.
but their link is in the show notes. Oh, and I wanted to tell everybody, all of you who follow Healthy Cooking with Shayda, our friend Shayda, we had a great conversation with her this morning, and she just debuted a beautiful website. So Healthy Cooking with Shayda.
She's got a number of her recipes
.com.
up on the front page. So.
Yes, and a lot of her recipes on there. She has a YouTube channel, a Facebook channel, and now she has a website. So I just went and looked at it earlier this morning, and it is fantastic. So check that out too.
Okay, Riri has a question. Do we know where people can get this refrigerator? We got this one from a local appliance store, but I would think that between Lowe's or Home Depot or RC Willey, if you have any of those national chains in your area, or you can go to GE's website, the main GE US website, and they always have a Find a Dealer Near You box. You put in your zip code, and they will tell you who has this equipment in your area.
Now, what brand is the one that we have in the garage? Because we bought that recently.
That was a clearance promotion at
Lowe's.
At Lowe's, and I think it's a Samsung, maybe. So yeah, that it was a garage fridge,
and it's very similar to this one.
Yeah.
Now, we bought this one back in 2016, I think, 15 or 16.
When we remodeled.
So we've had it for a good 5 years. We did see one that was very similar to it at Costco. It wasn't as deep as this. This is 28 cubic feet, and this one is really deep. And you can see it sticks out quite a ways from the wall, where the wall ends there. But we were willing to do that because we wanted the extra capacity. So we have had it for a number of years now. Gosh, can you believe that we remodeled this kitchen that long ago at this point? That time's gone by really fast.
Really fast, yeah.
Yeah. So we've had it for 4 or 5 years. So it is older. But there's a lot of even other brands that are very similar to this one. Mm-hmm. And we love having the double doors on top and the freezer pulls out on the bottom. And it just is so much easier with this lifestyle to be able to pack it full. And I hated my side-by-side when I had a side-by-side.
Yeah, I-58 Farms is asking, what pan do you prefer when you're using veg stock to fry? Stainless steel, cast iron, or non-stick?
Yeah, so we don't use cast iron, and I don't use my stainless steel because my stainless steel pan is not big enough. But I know Chef Bravo and
True North.
From True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, and he's recently been on Chef AJ's show at 11 o'clock. He uses stainless steel, and he is able to saute an onion in it and usually not have to add any liquid, or if he does, he will use a little bit of no sodium added broth. So we use our Scan pan, that is SCAN, Scan pan, and it is a ceramic pan, and I think I have the 5.5 quart one, and that's what I use. And I can saute an onion or mushrooms in it because they have a lot of liquid. If you don't turn the temperature up too high to begin with and allow them to just release their natural juices, then you don't usually have to add very much liquid.
I-58 Farms was also asking earlier, how do we feel about canning to limit excess sodium being put into our food items?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to can, I say more power to you.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, we don't have the garden. I grew up in a family that we did canning. Canning was a big part of every fall harvest, whether it was tomatoes or beans, canned pears, canned peaches, canned cherries. We put up everything.
And she also, your mom froze corn.
Yeah, frozen corn, and then jellies and jams would go into the canning jars, and we ate a lot off of our grandparents' farm. So that was a normal part of our life. The ground we live on now in suburban California is not farmable. It's fill dirt and it's hard clay. And everybody does raised garden beds here because you can't really till the soil at all.
Right. Although our tomatoes look great. I'm going to show them our tomatoes here.
Yeah, we put in 3 tomato plants in this little garden I made, and we're getting to the point now where we're harvesting
Look
them
at these beauties.
faster than we can eat them.
These are so delicious, and they are so sweet. So I was eating them like grapes this morning. They are just so amazing.
They are really sweet.
Yeah, and our big tomatoes aren't getting that big, but these are also really delicious tomatoes. So we just have 3 tomato plants. One.
So this is our fall harvest right here. This is, you're off screen here.
I hope we get more than this.
Yeah, that's the fall harvest right there.
I hope we get more.
No, we'll have, it'll keep cranking out some. Allie Oakley, we keep avocados around for when the grandkids are here. They love them. And that, you know, we don't eat them regularly. It's a rare treat.
Yeah.
Because they are, you know, a healthy food, but they're also significantly right of the calorie density proverbial red line.
Yeah, they're about 700 calories per pound, and they're just a little calorically dense. So I usually will only have avocado if we're eating out, and you know, maybe there's a little slice on a taco or something like that, or you know, on a veggie taco. But otherwise, I just don't very often eat avocado.
Scott and Diane have been doing sprouts in jars.
Nice, I have done that too. Yeah, I love it. I think they're great. And they say it's a lot safer to make your own sprouts at home, that the ones that you buy in the stores are more apt to have some problems. And so I think it's great. I have sprouted my own in the past, and I think they're really wonderful. So that's awesome that you're doing that.
Oh, do we know what kind of tomato this is?
These are called Celebrity, I remember, and these I don't recall. I'll look at the tag.
The sign said cherry tomatoes, but they're awful big cherry tomatoes. They're almost golf ball tomatoes.
So, you know, we were at Costco in the beginning of the summer, and Costco had some garden plants. And so we thought we were getting 3 cherry tomato plants, but one of them was these Celebrity tomatoes is what the tag says. And I don't remember what these are called, but I'll look at the tag and we'll try to tell you next week. And they're very, very sweet, and I love them. So I'll be really sad when the season's over and we don't have those anymore, because these have been so great on top of tostadas and my taco salads, and I've been having them in everything. So they're really delicious.
Do we eat soy curls? Allie Oakley is asking, do we eat soy
curls? Yeah, a couple times a year we will have them. It's something that I usually make if our kids and grandkids are coming over. They like them to make them like barbecue is really the only thing that I usually do with them. And I think they're perfectly fine. They're just a little bit higher calorie density, but I think they're great. I think soy curls are great. I know some people use them a lot, like weekly, but I reserve them for kind of like special treats when we have get-togethers. What happened to the questions?
Oh, I was working on another page. Linda is asking about Tuscan Sun Balsamic.
Yeah, so that's the new flavor from California Balsamic. I don't know if they've debuted it yet. When I went on I was trying to go on their website the other day to look, and the website was down for maintenance. I know that they're getting a new website, so it could be that it was transferring over, and so I couldn't get on to see if the new flavor is up for sale or not. He said he was going to debut it in August, and I love it. It is amazing. So I like to use that in my chopped salads, and I'll add some sun-dried tomatoes to the chopped salad, and then garbanzo beans, and a little bit of fruit, and then that salad dressing or the vinegar I'll use as my salad dressing, and it is amazing. I love it.
Thank you, Jean, for the super chat. There's a thumbs up bird.
It's so cute.
I've never seen a thumbs up bird before.
That's adorable. Thank you so much. We really appreciate the super chat.
Let's see. I got to click the down arrow here. Linda says there's a new name to it. Is there a new name for it, or
for the California Balsamic? I don't know. Is there?
For the Tuscan.
Oh, did they give it a new name? I don't know, because the bottle of it that I have was one that he sent me.
It's a prototype.
It was a prototype, so it didn't have a final label on it. It just had a handwritten label on it, and he sent it to me just to have me taste it and let them know if I liked it or not.
He experiments on a few people, Tami and Chef AJ, and if they like it, then he makes it available to the public. So yeah, so we get stuff sometimes we don't know what it is. Sometimes he actually doesn't tell Tami what it is. He says, taste this and tell me what you think.
Yeah, he sent one this last time that said, guess what this is. Well, I did guess it. I can't tell you because he makes me swear to secrecy.
Okay.
So a lot of people are saying that the critters...
7 herbs Italian balsamic.
Oh, is that what he's calling it now?
Okay.
Nice.
So I think you answered... If you were asking a question, I think you answered ours. Okay, Ms. Tami, I think we might be...
Did you capture all the questions?
Yeah, more or less. If I missed your question, if we have missed your question, please re-ask it at the bottom of the chat feed again now.
Yeah, so the Butler soy curls, you can get them on Amazon. When I order them, I usually order them right from the Butler Foods company because I'll order, my daughter and I will split like a case of them. And so, because you can store them in the freezer. So once you get them, just go ahead and put them in your freezer.
Even though they're dry.
Yeah, put them in your freezer. They last forever. If you have any Seventh-day Adventist communities in wherever you live, like here, there is a Seventh-day Adventist store that does sell them. When I visit my parents in Nebraska, they have a Seventh-day Adventist bookstore / store, and I was able to go there when I was visiting and buy a bag of the soy curls so that I could make those for my mom and dad. Susan Johnston, thank you for the super chat. We really appreciate that. Scott, thank you for the super chat. How did working in your garden go today? Scott says, thanks, Tom and Tami. You're very welcome. So if you're new to our channel or don't follow us on Facebook, oh, Fooly Julie, thank you so much for the super chat. Tom and I on Sunday mornings, we walk and we do a Facebook Live on Nutmeg Notebook Facebook, and we chat while we're walking. And so Scott was on there this morning, and he said, I can't watch, but I can listen while he was working in his garden this morning.
So yeah, we toured the rock garden again this morning. That's the highlight of our morning walk.
It is. So you can go to Nutmeg Notebook Facebook page, and you can watch the video. And I usually try to pick a topic to talk about, a little something to, make it more valuable for people. So soy curls are like dehydrated soybeans. So they almost look like strips of chicken, and they're really bland. And so they take on, you have to soak them in hot water. And then I usually squeeze the water out of them, and I like to brown them a little bit in my scan pan because I just think it gives them a much better texture. And then you can use them like you would, let's say, like chunks of chicken or shredded chicken in different recipes. So you can make like shredded barbecue tofu. You can use them in a casserole dish. Our daughter just made some no chicken soup, and she cut up the soy curls and put them in the soup so that it would be kind of like a chicken soup. And Margot Tobias, thank you for the super chat. That's so nice, you guys.
Let's see.
We really appreciate that. We really do.
Oh, Karen Hicks is asking what time on Sunday.
This morning it was after 7. We left here at 7, and we kind of like to walk a little bit and get warmed up and get our pace up before we get started. So usually it's between like 7:15 and
7:30,
7:45, I would say, sometime in their Pacific time. And so
Pumpkin Seed made the walk again this morning. So
Sharon says, what your daily portion of beans that you add to your salad. I never measure them, but I can tell you that when I open up like a can of, let's say, garbanzo beans or pinto beans, I usually get 3 servings out of it. So I will, rinse and drain them if I'm using canned, and I'll put them in a container, and then I'll
so once
usually
you drain those, you probably got 12 ounces, so you're probably doing 4-ounce servings.
maybe.
Yeah.
So they usually last for three different salads, or depending on what I'm making with them. Did I miss the preference question about date paste versus maple syrup in recipes? As far as, do you prefer date paste because it's less? Yes, absolutely. Because maple syrup is highly processed. All the fiber is gone and most of the nutrients. And so that's why I use either whole dates or date paste. Just because, the maple syrup is pretty close to eating sugar.
Yeah, there was a question early in the feed I answered that, people have seen the Costco maple syrup in the fridge.
Yes.
And we keep that around for the kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we keep that around for the grandkids, because our daughter makes a marinated tofu for them with just like a tablespoon of maple syrup, for a whole brick of tofu. And so sometimes I make that for them if they're coming over. So that's why we have maple syrup here. Tom and I don't use it for anything for us, but we do use it for some recipes for the grandkids.
People are figuring out new stuff with
How
these
are
super.
they
Do you
doing
guys
that?
get to see what these characters are doing? Well,
Do
yeah,
you-
because you got the chat feed. So that's a
Martha, thank you so much for the super chat. And the cute, it's a pear. And the pear is, aw, that's so cute.
Okay.
How do you guys do that? That's amazing. I love it.
It must be something when they do them.
So somebody asked what super chats are. Beverly, thank you so much for the super chat.
Super chats are a way to support the channel, to support the blog, to support the YouTube work that we do.
Yeah.
And it helps us fund our equipment and all of our software expenses and web service expenses. So we appreciate everybody's participation.
Okay, so somebody's asking about, what about honey? Well,
and Beverly DeBolt, thank you. Okay.
So honey doesn't have any fiber to it. I know it does have, some health benefits, but we personally just don't use honey.
Yeah, and
so it's also, really
it's not a vegan item.
highly concentrated sweetener.
Yeah.
And so that's why we stick to fruit and dates. And date paste or date. I will use a little bit of date syrup. Can we talk about Tom's progress with lowering cholesterol with a whole food plant-based diet?
Did we discuss that? We
We shared a couple weeks ago the benefits that we personally got from a whole food plant-based diet, and you talked about how it lowered your cholesterol,
right.
And it also lowered mine.
Yeah. So go back. Do you remember what the name of that was?
Something about our benefits of a whole food plant-based diet.
If you'll go back and catch that video, we talk some about that. So,
yeah.
Just the short answer is that I feel really, it's good to feel confident that you don't have to, at my age, worry about having a sudden onset heart attack unexpectedly when you're just doing something normal that you do every day. So there's kind of a, and nobody's bulletproof. I completely understand that, but it feels good to feel good, and it feels good to not have to worry about having a heart attack any minute now. Other people I know, some members of my family, and I'm very familiar with their diet. It's what my diet was. And I had an underlying anxiety about my health when I ate that stuff. And so that underlying anxiety has gone away. So I guess there's a psychology to it too, huh? Wow.
Well, and what's interesting is your LDL cholesterol wasn't like crazy high, even given the way you were eating.
It climbed over 200. I got a warning from the doctor that it was getting too high.
But even with your bad diet that you were eating, it wasn't as bad as I would have thought it would have been.
Yeah.
So a lot of it also has
genetic.
to do with genetics, because even though I was not eating red meat. I wasn't eating cheese. I wasn't, eating fried foods. I was having trouble with my LDL cholesterol. And the doctor just said, I said, this isn't fair because I really work at it and Tom doesn't at that time. And he was like, it's genetics,
Yeah.
So Beverly, thank you so much for the super chat. So I'm looking for any questions here.
Oh, how many points did it drop, Carol? My high was 206, and my regular running rate probably combined, I would have to look up what the LDL, HDL levels were, but the combined thing dropped down below 150. It's been as low as 118. So.
Well, your LDL itself at one point was under 100, was it not?
Yeah.
Like mine dropped down to 99 at one point,
Yeah.
my LDL.
Yeah, the two of them together, I think it was like 111 or 118.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then the ratio was, 3 to 1 or something, a perfect ratio, the doctor commented. So yeah, the doctor was like, yeah, your cholesterol is better than average. He actually said, I've never seen it run quite so low, somebody your age, but the ratio is perfect. So he was kind of scratching his head because he's not
he's not plant-based.
Plant-based educated doctor.
Okay, a question there. I see question marks.
Okay.
Right there.
Tea case, ideas for batch cooking greens as it's too cold for salad. Tom's idea for warming greens is not ideal in very cold weather for me. Thanks, Tami and Tom.
What's your idea for warming
Well, I
greens?
microwave I put my salad at night in the microwave for a minute, and then I prep my beans and rice and corn, and then I zap it for another 30 seconds. So my greens are getting like 1.5 minutes just to get the chill off of them and have them be sort of warm.
Yeah, so we do have one video where we show how to make cruciferous crunch hot in the Instant Pot. And then you get the pot liquor from that. So you can just, throw everything in a pressure cooker.
That's one of our early videos. That video is over a couple years old. Steamed vegetables. Yeah.
But that's super easy. And the other way to heat up greens is just in a skillet.
Now you fry it. You batch. And then you put them in the Snap Lock containers.
What I was just talking about.
The super greens.
I'll start with an onion and some mushrooms and throw in some garlic, and then I'll do zucchini, and if I have carrots or sugar snap peas or broccoli or cauliflower, whatever vegetables I have, then I'll throw that in the skillet. I'll throw the baby greens in there, or if you just if you have your greens, your kale or whatever greens you have, just de-stem them and throw them in there, put the lid on, and they'll create steam and they'll steam themselves. And I just do it to the point where they're al dente, just to the bite, so they're tender. And then I will divide them up into containers and put lids on them. I use glass containers that have plastic lids, and I'll put them in the refrigerator, and then I can heat them up. You could either do it in the microwave like I do, or you could do it on top of the stove in a saucepan or a nonstick skillet to heat them up. Kylie, thank you so much for the super chat. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. So that's a really easy way to cook your greens. Or you can use a steamer basket with boiling water underneath. You can put everything in the steamer basket and just steam them until they're at the right texture for you, which I have found is different for everyone. Some people like their vegetables to be just, really, really soft, and other people like them to have some bite to them.
Fully Julie's got a great question here. And Carol, thank you. And but back to the cholesterol. If you're at 216 and you really embrace the whole food plant-based, eating, you'll see that, plummet pretty rapidly. So.
Although I will say that when you first, like some people, it takes a while for them.
Well, if you're releasing fat, it can actually go up.
It can go up. If you have weight to lose initially, your numbers can go up
because there's cholesterol stored in
there's cholesterol stored in your fat stores.
So if your body starts using that, it's releasing that cholesterol.
So just know that initially the numbers can go up, but over time it will even out.
Okay. Fully Julie's asking, how do you come up with such great recipes? I've never cooked a bad one from you, not one. They're all in her favorite rotation.
Thank you so much. Well, here's the thing.
We edit out the bad ones before we publish.
Well, yeah, sometimes I try things and then they're a flop. Just know that.
She has a phrase, blog-worthy.
Yeah,
if
this
a recipe is not blog-worthy, it doesn't typically go in the blog.
No, so like the Alfredo sauce, I worked on that for almost a year. I made multiple. We even shot a video of it, and at the end, like I tasted it again, and I said, no, we're not using this.
It got too stiff. It set up too quickly.
Yeah, and I just wasn't happy with the flavor. And he said, what? We just spent all that time shooting the video. And I was like, it's not to my standards. I need to set this aside and not give it any attention for a while and come back to it. And that's what I did. And then the very next time that I made it was perfection.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. You and I must share the same likes for the same flavor profiles. And so that's why you like my recipes, because you and I have the same taste preferences. And not everybody thinks everything that I make tastes delicious. And that's because I get comments from people who say, I didn't like this. But it's all about personal preferences. And so, it doesn't mean that my recipes are better than anybody else's. It's just that you and I like the same taste, have the same taste preferences, I guess. So, and I'm the same. Like, there's some people that I follow and I like their food, and their recipes are always winners for me. And the reason is because they like the same taste profiles that I like. So thank you very much, though. That makes me very happy.
Carol Lee is asking, once you stopped losing weight, how much more or less did you get to eat compared to while you were losing weight? I'm a lifelong yo-yo dieter as well. Thanks.
Yeah, so, well, I can't tell you exactly because I never track how much I eat, or by pounds or cups or anything like that. And I never tracked by like how many calories I consume, because I've never put them into any kind of tracking system to see.
Do you eat dramatically different now than when you were losing weight, though? Is it because we're eating to satiety? We eat our vegetables and our starches.
Yeah, I'm probably eating about the same, but I will tell you that Dr. Roseanne Oliveira has studied this, and she's the doctor from the UC Davis Integrative Medicine. And if you Google Dr. Roseanne Oliveira, YouTube with Chef AJ, she has 2 videos where AJ interviewed her, where she talked specifically about weight loss. And she says that women like you and I, who have yo-yo dieted for years, we have to eat about 25% less calories than someone our same age, height, and weight who has never yo-yo dieted, because it just messes up our metabolism and the way that we store fat. And so we have to, and she has an identical twin sister, and her identical twin have tracked their weight, and her sister gained weight and lost weight a couple of times, and she has to eat about 25% fewer calories than Dr. Roseanne Oliveira does, because she's been a yo-yo dieter. But I say everything's different for every person. So, and I will tell you that I can gain weight very, very easily. If I overeat for...
She's not gotten into tofu or the avocados very much. I'll eat a little tofu and a little avocado, and when I do it, it does show up, but then I can get rid of it quickly.
Yeah, Tom has more room for extras than I do. I don't have a lot of room for extra food in my daily allotment, apparently, because I can gain weight really easily.
Stephanie Simpson is asking, have you substituted using only sweet potato or purple sweet potato for russet potato in vegan cheese sauce and left out the smoked paprika? She's trying to avoid nightshades.
Okay.
She follows up with
Well,
below.
I can tell you that last week I made it with all butternut squash because our Whole Foods was out of Yukon Gold potatoes. And so I had some butternut squash that I had oven roasted and I had in the freezer. So I thawed it out and I used it to make the cheese sauce, and it worked well.
It was it was creamier, but it separated a bit in the fridge. But we just
Yes.
stirred it back together.
Yeah.
It wasn't really an issue.
So the texture of it isn't as creamy and smooth on the reheat as it is with the potatoes and carrots, and but the flavor was pretty good.
Now she wants to take out the hot.
Yeah, you can take out the smoked paprika if you don't like it, and you could use just sweet paprika or regular paprika, and that should be fine. So
yeah, Jesse's echoing that. Try butternut squash. Instead, we used kabocha. Butternut wouldn't be.
No, I used butternut
You did
in
use
that.
butternut. Okay.
I used a butternut squash, but you could use the kabocha squash would probably be even better because the kabocha squash has less water in it and is a little bit sweeter. But just know on the
Bye, Carol.
on the reheat, when it sat in the refrigerator, it did separate. The water came out of it, and so you just have to stir it really well when you go to reheat it.
Our time is up. It's been 94 minutes.
Okay, Laura's on. Laura Armitage is on. Hi, Laura. Thank you so much. She says, I love all your recipes that I've ever tried. You're such a good supporter, Laura. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right.
Any other
Chris
questions?
Lane has an identical twin sister. So proud to say she's recently went plant-based.
Yay!
Yeah, there was a question early on, maybe
Happy birthday.
today. Quite a bit of our local family here is plant-based. Our daughter and her 3 kids and our son have all gone plant-based, following Tami's lead. So
Yes. Okay, so smoked paprika and regular paprika are nightshade as well. Well, then just eliminate those. And it should be fine. And if it needs a little more flavor, then, you could add, are you making the chipotle nacho cheese sauce or the regular, the other cheese sauce that's on the blog?
Did it have smoked paprika on it?
I can't remember. I think maybe it did.
Donna's cheese sauce?
Donna's cheese sauce. Well, anyway, you could always add a little more garlic powder or onion powder if it needs a little more boost, or you could add jalapeno powder if you can have that, or you could add a jalapeno. You could add a little bit of roasted red pepper or even raw red pepper just to help give it some color if you can have red pepper. There's lots of different things you can do with cheese sauces.
Martha S., are you being serious? Or are you having fun? Fully Julie and Martha says Fully Julie and her are identical twins.
I think she's just being silly.
Okay. I could take things literal. Elijah Hall is saying vegans. Yeah, there's some vegans on this website. I think so. Let's see.
Tinkerbev says, Tami, your salads are a thing of beauty. I would pay you $20 a day to come pick one up. Wow, that's sweet. That's sweet. Oh, it was Donna's.
Oh, Fully Julie
sauce.
says, yes, Martha is my twin.
Seriously? Seriously, you guys? Are you really twins?
We're going to be looking.
Can we see?
Oh, there they are right there, side by side. The avatars. They're tiny.
Yeah, they're little.
Okay,
They are
ladies.
twins. That's
Wow.
exciting. Well, we have grandchildren that we have a set of twins, but a boy, girl. And then I have brothers that are younger than me, a set of twin boys, but they are not identical. They are fraternal. So we have a lot of twins in our family.
Tiffany says to use jackfruit.
Yes, not the canned jackfruit. I buy the kind that comes in a box, and we have it on our Amazon page, and I buy it at Sprouts, which is a little store. Oh, Foodie Julie is 4 minutes older. Well, awesome. You guys, that's so cool.
Okay.
All right. So Donna's does have smoked paprika in it. So just leave the smoked paprika out. Don't substitute any other paprika. If you want the color, you can add something to it that's red.
Yeah.
You probably can't have tomatoes either because tomatoes are nightshade too, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, you should be able to make it and have it taste good. Yes, I grind my black cumin seeds. You do need to grind it. And on our Amazon page, we show the grinder that we have.
Okay. Oh, our twin grandkids, they're approaching 2 years old. They're now starting to conspire together to get into mischief. Things get really quiet, and we find them both huddled in the corner getting into something that they shouldn't.
Yes.
So, yeah, they're getting into that age where they're really collaborating to usually
to be naughty,
to cause some kind of trouble.
Yeah,
it's just hilarious to watch.
They are so much fun, and then their older sister is 4, and she's so much fun, and they're all starting to play together, which is just really nice.
Okay, shout out to Nick Gurr from Inzi. Can you shout out my friend? He is in the hospital, so he can't watch you right now. He loves your streams. His name is Nick Gurr. Hello, Nick.
Hi, Nick. We hope you're well.
Catch
soon.
us later. We look forward to having you catch us live sometime.
Yeah.
Okay, now, all right.
Are we done?
We are out of time. We are out of time, everybody. Thank you so much.
We're getting hungry too. It's dinner
It's been
time.
a wonderful chat stream tonight. We enjoyed everybody being here.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. We certainly enjoy the community that has come together here. If you don't follow us on Instagram and Facebook, think about it. That's where give us a thumbs up if you haven't done so already. So there's 591 of you watching, but we only have 126 thumbs up. So
126 is not bad.
It's not bad. Well, give us a thumbs up. If you're watching on a big screen TV,
you have to grab your phone.
Grab your phone and go on YouTube and give us a thumbs up, because we know you can't do that on your big screen TV. Also, you can share our video if you'd like on Facebook. And if you belong to any groups and want to share it, that's great. We can't do it ourselves because that's considered self-promoting, or tell people to check us out. But if you want to know what we eat, so I usually batch cook on the weekend, and then we eat off of that batch cooking throughout the week, as well as utilizing what we have batch prepped and frozen. And so I post that about at least 4 or 5 times a week on Instagram under Nutmeg Notebook, as well as on our Facebook page, Nutmeg Notebook. So if you're interested in seeing what we eat on a daily basis, check that out.
There's
well,
always
I should
something
say,
there.
I post my food. Tom doesn't post his.
That's because my dump soup's not blog worthy.
You did a post on it.
And my chopped salads are very delicious that I have most nights, but I don't take the time to make them pretty. So, but Tammy's been talking about getting me my own login for the Nutmeg Notebook.
Somebody
Facebook
says
page.
you can do a thumbs up on when you're watching on TV.
I don't know how to do that.
It says just hit the down button and it brings up the thumb.
Oh,
that's great. Oh, good to know.
Oh, well then hit the down button. Okay.
Okay, and then
Pam Reeder. Hi, Pam. Pam says she can do hers. Okay.
Oh, great, Pam.
All right.
Thank you. Okay.
Jesse, Randy, thank you so much. Great job today.
And Tiffany, when you watch...
Fooly Julie says my dump soup is blog worthy.
Oh, whoa. Well, he's going to get all cocky now that you've said that.
Okay.
He had it for lunch today. And there's a video on his dump soup if anybody wants to know. It's not blog worthy.
Okay.
No, he loves it, and that's all that matters.
Tiffany Cargyle, thank you for the super chat. And now a dancing pair blowing a party whistle.
Oh, that's so cute. Those are so adorable. I love that. That's so much fun. Okay, and if you've never been to the blog, go over to the blog and subscribe to the blog.
Link in the show notes.
NutmegNotebook.com. If you have a question for us for next week, you can send it to Tom at NutmegNotebook.com or Tami, Tami, at NutmegNotebook.com. And subscribe to the blog, because you'll get a link to 2 exclusive recipes that are just for subscribers.
And my reminder emails about the live show.
Yes.
So
I'm Tami.
And I'm Tom.
And we help you get healthy and stay healthy, one meal at a time.
Bye-bye.
Bye, you guys. Thanks for watching. This was so much fun today. You guys are the best. Now we're going to eat dinner. Bye-bye.